11, we'll convene our meeting then. Welcome to the 43rd meeting of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. We're convened today to continue our ongoing scrutiny of the renovations and associated costs of the Parliamentary Precinct renovation project, a subject we've been monitoring for a number of years now. And we all look forward to an update, and also committee members will be going on a tour of the West Block renovation later today, so I think we'll all be very interested in that as well. It doesn't leave us much time for a presentation and perhaps one round of questioning from committee members, so we'll begin without delay and introduce our witnesses today from the Department of Public Works and Government Services. Nancy Chow, Assistant Deputy Minister from the Parliamentary Precinct Branch. Welcome, Assistant Deputy Minister, and I wonder if you could introduce anyone else that will be making a presentation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, honourable members. Bonjour à tous. Merci pour l'invitation.
Good morning. Thank you for having invited me.
The Director General responsible for the major Crown projects in the Parliamentary Precinct. I appreciate this opportunity to update you on the program to preserve and rehabilitate Canada's historic Parliament buildings. I last appeared before this committee to speak specifically about the long-term vision and plan for the Parliamentary Precinct in November 2013, or the LTVP. Since then, significant progress has been made. I'm pleased to report that all major projects continue to be on time and on budget. I will go into further detail in a moment, but I see there are new members at the table. Congratulations to all. And allow me to first provide some background to the LTVP. The LTVP is an overall strategy designed to address four main elements, namely the deterioration of the buildings, the health and safety risks, the shortage of functional space, and the evolving security needs. The LTVP was initially approved in 2001 and revised in 2007. It is based on 5-year programs of work. This approach permits flexibility in the planning and implementation, and it allows the government to respond to changing priorities. It also permits greater precision in determining costs and schedules. The LTVP is focused on rehabilitating the three main Parliament buildings, the West, Centre and East blocks, with the objective of getting to Centre block before building systems are projected to be in critical risk of failure in 2019. The LTVP requires managing a number of interdependent and concurrent projects, as illustrated in the work sequencing map to my right. Each 5-year program of work focuses on preparing for the next. The first focused on relocating parliamentary functions and parliamentary administration and establishing interim accommodations for members and functions from West Block. The second is focused on rehabilitating the West Block and establishing interim accommodations for members of the Senate. The next will focus mainly on Centre block. Between the cranes, tarps, and scaffolding, it may be difficult to see the progress being made. In fact, 19 major projects have been completed since 2004, over and above the work you see today, paving the way for the major rehabilitation of the Parliament buildings currently underway. In the delivery of these projects, we have managed to contain costs and save close to $40 million. En voici quelques exemples.
Here are some examples. The food production facility was completed in 2009, 6 months ahead of schedule, and $6.3 million under budget. The Valor building on Spark Street, just east of O'Connor, was completed in 2010. The works were completed on time and $6.4 million under budget. And in 2013, we completed enhancements to the perimeter security, including the retractable bollards that now stand at every entry point to Parliament Hill.
Projects underway in order of their expected date of completion. First would be the transformation of the former Bank of Montreal into the Sir John A. Macdonald building. This will put to good use a Heritage Crown asset. The newly constructed annex to the Heritage building more than doubles the amount of usable space. The building will house the Confederation Room, which is being permanently relocated from the West Block for ceremonial duties, as well as smaller meeting spaces. This facility will be substantially complete in just a couple of weeks. A short distance down the block, the Wellington building is about 3/4 finished and is on track to be completed in 2016. Once rehabilitated, the Heritage Building will provide accommodation for 70 parliamentary offices and 10 committee rooms. I do invite you to have a look at the pictures if you can. Work on the West Block, a building that was on the critical list when work began in 2011, has passed the halfway mark to completion, expected in 2017. The result will be a modern facility fit for a parliament in a modern age. This heritage building is being restored both inside and out. The interim House of Commons chamber will be constructed in an infill in what was previously an unused courtyard. The infill will increase the building's functional space by nearly 50% as of 2017. After the House of Commons chamber returns to a rehabilitated center block, we expect that the interim chamber will be converted to committee space. In conjunction with this work, a new visitor welcome center is also being constructed between the west and center blocks. This will be a new permanent entrance to Parliament that will allow for enhanced security screening of those visiting or working on the Hill. We are also in the early stages of work on the Government Conference Center. It will be fit up for interim use by the Senate. When the Senate moves back to the center block, the Conference Center will remain in PWGSC's portfolio as a fully functional asset. That project is slated for completion in 2018. What about East Block? The rehabilitation of East Block's oldest exterior wing, known as the 1867 wing, is also in the very early stages. A seismic design for all of East Block will be completed, followed by the rehabilitation of the wing's masonry, roofing, and windows. The remainder of the East Block will be worked on following the completion of the Center Block project. Again, each one of these projects is on time and on budget. Since 2006, the government has invested $1.1 billion in the rehabilitation of the parliamentary precinct. An additional $1.6 billion investment for work through to 2018 has been approved. We are now focused on planning for the rehabilitation of the center block. In March of this year, we began a consultation process and engaged with architectural, engineering, and construction associations on the future procurement of major contracts. The feedback we received will be used to develop future requests for proposals. We remain on track to empty the building in 2018. I would be happy to answer questions you may have on the progress to date for Center Block. Passons maintenant à la sécurité sur la colline du Parlement.
Let us now talk about security on Parliament Hill. In every project it delivers in the parliamentary precinct, my department works with the RCMP and with the Senate, House of Commons and Library of Parliament to implement their security requirements. The bollards, security cameras and the new guard huts at the main entrance to the centre block are examples of such requirements. We will continue to work with a unified security force and our parliamentary partners in delivering projects that meet their requirements.
The strong oversight and accountability framework that guides our work. These include a framework for solid third-party oversight encompassing contracts, schedules, costs, as well as quality and design, quarterly and annual reports to the Minister of Public Works and Government Services and to the Treasury Board Secretariat, as well as internal and external audits and evaluations. Both the Auditor General and the private sector have observed that PWGSC has in place sound project management practices for the rehabilitation of the precinct. An independent audit in 2012 concluded that sound practices, systems, controls, and outputs were in place in its assessment of 6 major Crown projects. Those, like all of you, who work every day within the parliamentary precinct do not have to look very hard to appreciate that this is a program of great scope and vast complexity. Let me assure you that the responsibility of preserving these heritage buildings and making sure they realize their full potential is not taken lightly. Safety, security, functionality, and fiscal responsibility are of prime importance. Quality construction and attention to the smallest detail, balanced with sound stewardship decisions, are of the essence. These buildings have been entrusted to us by the generations that came before us. We are making sure that they are preserved for the Canadians of tomorrow, and we remain mindful that every dollar spent counts and must be accounted for. I look forward to demonstrating the intricacies of the LTVP during our tour of the West Block following your questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Chowan, and we look forward to the tour as well. I think we have time for at least one full round of questioning, and I think we should leave ourselves 10 minutes or so to get geared up and head over so we can have a full hour at the West Block as well. So with the committee's agreement, we'll do our regular 6 spots, one full round, 5 minutes each. And to begin, for the official opposition, the NDP, Matthew Ravignac.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here and for your interesting presentation. Your departmental performance report 1314 basically says that the planned spending was $320.6 million, but the actual spending was $364.6 million. So that's like 44 million over. And yet you claim that most was under budget and on time. So can you explain that contradiction?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. This is only an apparent contradiction. The planned spending in the main estimates and the RPP are really just that. It's a plan. The DPR recognizes the actual spending done and registered at the end of the year. The 44 million reflect an acceleration of work, mainly on the West Block and on the Sir John A. Macdonald building. So it is still within the approved budget.
What explains the acceleration of work?
The initial layout of the expenditures over several fiscal years reflect planning early on for these projects. As we start the work, we work very closely with the construction manager and the designer, the prime consultant, to see what work packages can be done in parallel instead of sequentially. And that's part of how we can sometimes accelerate the work from out years to the current year.
So the projection of being on time wasn't being met. It demanded acceleration of certain types of work, and that incurred more costs. Would that be a fair characterization of what you just said?
That is a fair question, Mr. Chair, but it is not about accelerating the work to be able to stay on time. Our evaluation of being on time, and by the way, if I can specify that this is not a PWGC internal estimate, we have third-party cost and schedule experts that help us do that, and we have audits that confirm that. So we are on time per the initial baseline of the project delivery. Accelerating the work may allow us to finish ahead of time, but these projects are very, very complex, as you can appreciate, and so that gives us some float in the schedule.
So it also says that 95% of projects were delivered on time, so what 5% wasn't delivered on time?
So I have spoken in my introductory remarks about the 6 major Crown projects and major capital projects. Those are all on time and on budget. The indicator of on time, on budget that you see in the departmental performance report for 1314 include other kinds of projects for under the LTVP, and specifically what we call recapitalization projects. Those are projects that allow us to accelerate some work given building condition reports. That
Let me just be a little bit more specific.
Yes?
I guess what I'm looking for is the projects that are on time. So if you could, I don't have a lot of time, so if you could just give me that information, it'd be...
Of course, thank you for the question. So those are 4 recapitalization projects, and one of them is the Canada's Four Corners envelope rehabilitation. That's a building on the corner of Metcalfe and Sparks. And the project scope had to be revised because of a building condition report showing other facades needed work on. So we actually halted that project, and thus it shows late for on time. facade and parapet upgrades for the Victoria building, fire alarm audibility upgrades for the Confederation building, and finally business continuity of government for the House of Commons.
Left, Mr. Ravenat.
Have, I guess, recent security concerns added to, I guess, to future burdens, whether it be budgetary or time constraints? Are you being asked, for example, to change some of your plans in order to make the parliamentary precinct safer while you're doing this?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. So we are working very closely with the RCMP and the parliamentary partners to see what recent developments in security requirements introduced in terms of impacts on the projects underway and for projects coming up. So depending on the design maturity of those projects, we assess the impacts of the new requirements. Some requirements are already being taken into consideration, like, for example, upgrades to the vehicle screening facility at the entrance of the hill.
I'm afraid that concludes your time, Mr. Ravenat. Thank you very much. Next for the Conservatives, Greg Kerr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today with us. I'd like to start by, I guess, pointing out, no matter what they think of us here that occupy the spaces, Canadians are very, very proud of the fact that these are their national buildings. It means a lot to them. And part of what I hope is they'll see more in public documentation and so on, what goes on and why and so on. Because people think of the Parliament buildings, it's not the whole precinct, obviously. So I guess I'd like you to take us through in a sense that this is a long journey. If you can give us a sort of capsule of the start point as you see it to the completion, because it's major, and then perhaps a little more detail on the expectation as how it will look. Because I think every Canadian should have the chance to visit these buildings. They're extraordinary, and they do belong to every Canadian. So if you could fill us in a bit on that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much for this question. This is indeed one of our driving principles as we embarked on the long-term vision and plan. And the plan itself respects not only the evolving requirements from the parliamentary partners, but also the need to preserve these heritage buildings for the generations to come. The sequencing of the LTVP, as I mentioned in my speaking points, in my opening remarks, the LTVP is really geared towards getting to Centre Block to be able to start its rehabilitation before the building systems are slated to become in critical risk of failure. And we have several studies that point that most of the building systems will be in that state starting in 2019. All the rest of the LTVP is actually a sequencing map to get to that priority. So we have started by creating space so we can empty the buildings in the order of priority that the building condition reports was suggesting we should be adopting. And what you have seen, for example, is emptying the West Block in 2011. That was predicated on creating enough space around the precinct and around the hill in the precinct to be able to accommodate those functions that had to exit West Block. So the Sir John A. Macdonald building will be ready in just a few weeks, and that will house the Room 200 functions. Following that, we will see the completion of the Wellington building in 2016, allowing us to move out members of Parliament offices from the Centre Block. The next project to be finalized will be the West Block in 2017, and that will house the chamber functions for the House of Commons. We also need to make sure that we have interim space, accommodation space, and chamber space available for the Senate before 2018. And to support that, we are now rehabilitating the Government Conference Center, which will be ready on time for 2018. And that will house the Senate interim chamber as well as main offices for the leadership. We will also be working on some lease space. So this is the key sequencing that will allow us to make sure that the center block is empty on time for 2018 and for the start of that rehabilitation project.
Thank you very much. How much time do we have left? 1 minute? Maybe double this in a question. One is I really hope you're doing a lot of documentation, because I really want to emphasize that Canadians should go through this experience with us. They don't see it firsthand, but I think they should. The other is what surprises you may have found in the buildings as you went along that you may want to highlight.
That's a very interesting question. On the first part, yes, we are keeping records of the work in pictures and video in some cases, and we are working on ways to make this information available to Canadians. Right now, our website provides a lot of information on the projects underway. If I can turn to my colleague to tell you what interesting things we have found in West Block.
Yes, we are doing a number of things, excuse me, to document the processes that we go through during the design. We are actually using laser technology to do videos of the buildings on in the interior. We're actually partnering with Carleton University and l'Université de Montréal to do what's called BIM modeling, Building Information System modeling. We have found a number of interesting artifacts on the inside of the West Block. We found a letter in the bottom of an elevator shaft some time ago, which was a letter that had been sent by a member of Parliament back in the 1930s or so to a constituent, thanking them on the arrival of a new baby. And we also found the odd old tool in the building as well.
Isn't that interesting? That's great. Mr. Blanchette, 5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, guests, for having appeared before us today. It's always very nice to have you here. And during the transformation report for these Crown renovations, a report published on the 4th of December 2014, we estimated that certain projects would end at certain points. John A. Macdonald would be finished at 100% completion. Now, that's not the case at the moment. So what are your current predictions? My second question is, what repercussions will this have on the budget and other works? Thank you very much for your question. I understand that you can see the works that are happening around the building, but I can assure you that this project will be completed on time. Our anticipated completion date, the final completion date for works, will arise in a few weeks, and we expect to be on time. A mere few weeks, you say? Yes, we expect that everything will be finished by the end of March. When I say everything, I mean everything. It's all the substantial renovations. For any such projects, even if it's a house renovation project, there are still certain finishing touches to happen afterwards. But generally speaking, the building will be open for business at the end of March. The end of March. Let us talk about the Wellington building. Now, based on this same interim report from December, we expected works to be at 70% completion. Now, what is the current situation? Thank you for your question. According to our plan, on the 31st of March, the works were expected to be at 75% completion. I'm glad to say. Will that be the case? Answer, yes, we will go even beyond this. We expect to be at 73% before the end of March. That is excellent. My colleague talked about security, and he talked about audits and of what is physically visible. Now, are there any other security measures that are expected that will be of a significant importance to the works themselves? Yes, there is a number of works that have already been completed, installing CCTV systems, the bollards we have, the retractable bollards that are at certain entrances. We are closely working with our partners and the RCMP, and together we can make sure that our future designs will include very precise security measures. For example, for the visitor center. The visitor center will be completed in 2017 and will have very specific security measures, be it for CCTV or for the protection against bullets for various elements within the building. Now let us talk about the conference center that will be renovated and transformed. I have a few questions. Now, I use once again the report from December. We were told that the details of the project would be finished by now. Now, have we reached this stage? With regards to the creation of this conference center, we expected to be at about 50% completion with regards to architectural designs. That is exactly where we are right now. The project is in its baby steps. We are only at the 10% total completion rate. Now, I have another question. We know that this will be a temporary center. Have we already begun to plan? We know that this building is a federal building. Have we already begun to plan for its usage after we have come back to Center Block? Yes, we have made certain projections. Here we're talking about 2028, 2029 at the earliest. However, we are investing at the moment, and over 95% of our investments will be reused so that this building can come back to its integral state. And this building will still be used and will continue to be used by PWGSC and will be converted into a conference center.
For the Conservatives, Mr. Brad Butt, 5 minutes, please. Brad.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for being here today. I mean, I think it's very exciting what's going on around here, and that we are wanting to preserve these assets and make them more functional, and obviously have them open to the public, because as Mr. Kerr well said, these buildings belong to the Canadian people, and they are a treasure. I want to start by asking about the asbestos remediation program. How that is progressing. I understand that's very delicate, specific work, obviously certain very specifically trained individuals, because I know that was a big concern about the rehabilitation of these buildings, is the asbestos removal. So can you comment on how that program works in conjunction with the overall renovation and rehabilitation of the various buildings?
Yes, thank you for the question. We take this very seriously, and we take the health and safety of the workers on our construction sites very seriously also. Before we embark on a rehabilitation project, we do what is called a designated substance report. So we look not only for asbestos, but we make sure that we document every recurrence of a designated substance, including asbestos. We make sure that the contractors that we mandate are responsible to comply with all applicable legislation, whether federal or provincial, and that every worker is certified to do that kind of abatement work. And we have an asbestos abatement program that has been completed for the West Block, the Sir John A. Macdonald building, and the Wellington building. And the removal of those materials and the disposal of those materials is done in full compliance with the applicable regulations.
The House of Commons is due to expand by 30 additional members after the next general election. Can you comment on, I guess, two aspects? Number one, the renovations, because I don't believe the new chamber in West Block will be ready immediately after the next election to house 338 members of Parliament. So can you comment on the renovation of the existing chamber to accommodate the extra 30 members, and then detail to us in the new chamber that will be in West Block that we're able to accommodate that many number of members within that building when it is ready?
Yes.
And comment on what the transition period is in the life of the next Parliament, moving from the one location to West Block.
Thank you very much for this question. We will be ready for the 2015 election in terms of the existent chamber. So we have been working for a good period of time now with the House of Commons to design additional seats that would be disposed on both sides of the existing chamber. And what is planned right now is that the last two rows would be replaced with theater-style seating, and of course equipped with the same technology facilities as exist for the other seats. For the new chamber, as you mentioned, we have time to incorporate that requirement within the designs. And for the transition period, we expect, we are planning this very closely with the House of Commons, of course, the House of Commons administration, and we plan to make the transition during the recess of 2017.
And so when the new chamber is ready in West Block, is that going to be the only main use of West Block, or are there going to be additional meeting rooms? Are there offices in there as well, or is West Block just sort of the holdover for the chamber, for the House of Commons, while we're waiting for Center Block to be redone and obviously have everybody back here in whatever year that is? So I know we're going to go for a tour. You're probably going to point it out to us, but just so it's on the record, I think it'd be nice to know exactly what is going to be going on in the West Block building.
I will ask you to answer.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, of course, the chamber will be located in the West Block. It will also contain 4 full committee rooms, as well as all of the back of house spaces that are required for a building of this nature, shipping and receiving, etc., and as well as a number of Member of Parliament offices.
That actually wraps up your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You used it very well. Next, then, the second Vice Chair from the Liberal Party, Mr. Jerry Byrne. He says with great theatre panache.
And thank you to our witnesses for appearing before us. This is not a small project whatsoever. It's a multi-year project. Would you be able to remind the committee, to put some context to this, the budget? Just remind the committee what the government, what the people of Canada has spent on this on an annual basis over the last, say, 5 years.
Yes, thank you. Allow me to find the information. I'm not sure I have the breakdown on an annual basis, but I can provide it to you on a phased basis. Sure. Total approvals to date for the LTVP amount to approximately $3 billion. As of the end of March of this year, of the current month, we expect to have invested approximately $1.8 billion of that amount. The period between 2006 and 2015 would amount to $1.4 billion of investments.
Wow, that's a fair bit of money, but they're obviously beautiful buildings. Let's just moving to security issues. I think that's one of the areas that parliamentarians are seized with is the evolving security situation here on Parliament Hill. There wasn't a whole lot of information provided in the initial presentation, but we have seen that prior even to the tragic incidents of October 22nd, there have been incidences where security has been reformed. For example, the scaling of the West Block by Greenpeace, we saw an increased presence by the RCMP in cruisers stationed around the parliamentary precinct, especially Justice Confederation, West Block, East Block, and Centre Block. How have the plans changed for integrating security infrastructure, not just cameras, but actually places to be able to hold security personnel in comfort and in vigilance, in proper vigilance. Would you be able to go through that for us?
Thank you very much. I understand security is of the utmost importance for the workers, the visitors, and the people, of course, using these buildings as their place of work every day. The Public Works and Government Services Canada acts as a service provider. So we do not define the requirements for security. What we do is work very closely and integrate ourselves into work in an integrated manner, I should say, with the RCMP, with the parliamentary partners, the House of Commons, the Senate, mainly through the Master Security Planning Office for the parliamentary precinct. And this is where the discussions about the requirements, the security requirements are developed and confirmed. Based on confirmed requirements, this is when Public Works hires security consultants, hires design consultants to incorporate those into the design and the construction of the project.
Thanks very much. Well, then answer this question, since you're not the decision taker, but the implementer. How have the plans changed since October 22nd, or have they?
So we have, and I will turn towards you in a minute to talk about the Visitor Welcome Center, what is already involved in the current design. But to address your question specifically, what are the changes since October 22nd? We have been working on upgrades to the vehicle screening facility for the RCMP, and we are still in constant conversations, no confirmed scope change yet for the buildings under construction.
So one of the key areas was, of course, visitor screening outside of the building. I think most security experts would have been able to point out that security screening inside the building creates a substantial risk. So now that's done outside of the building. It's done in a canvas tent. Is there any plan to actually create some sort of permanent infrastructure outside of the building to conduct those preliminary or first tier visitor screenings?
Thank you for pointing out that indeed we have worked, for example, on exterior guard huts just outside of Center Block. That's one example of the work that has been done since October 22nd. For the longer term, the visitor welcome complex it will be underground and will be outside of the imprint of the buildings. So if you look at the plans for phase 1 of that visitor welcome center vis-a-vis the West Block, you will see that this is outside of the imprint of the building precisely.
This was a change that was implemented within the last 6 months?
No, this was embedded in the original design.
Great, I'll have to interrupt you there, Derry. That's your time has expired. And then for the Conservatives, our Vice Chair, no, you're not the Vice Chair. Our Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister is Chris Warkentin.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to our witnesses for coming. This is an exciting project and something that we've been wanting an update for some time because it is fascinating to us as well as most Canadians. I come from a little bit of a construction background, and the project that every contractor fears to get into is a renovation, especially one of a historical building. This is the mother of all renovation projects, and obviously there's unexpected encounters when you tear into a building like this. Maybe you'll speak to a little bit of those unexpected and those encounters that were unexpected. Obviously, you've already told us that you're still on time, so that's a remarkable achievement to run into those things but maintain the timelines that you have. I'd like, in addition to that, if you'd speak to the importance of maintaining the historical integrity of the buildings. Obviously, there's some incredible architectural detailing that has been maintained and renewed, but it's an interesting dynamic. The project that's being undertaken obviously has to maintain that integrity of the historical, but you also have the opportunity to use new materials and take advantage of new energy efficiencies and different things like that. I'm wondering how you've been able to incorporate all of those priorities into this project, and maybe tell us a little bit more about those things.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to go back to the heritage aspect. I may not have completely answered Mr. Kerr's question earlier on this. One of the complexities of the LTVP is that we have to juggle several driving factors. New functional requirements, the security aspects, the heritage element, and the complexity of working on buildings that were built in times where the blueprints were not necessarily very accurate. So you're right, we have run into discoveries that have forced us to rethink the approach for some work packages. And Edzio will be able to give you a few examples of that. But before I turn to Edzio, we have adopted an innovative approach when we started work specifically on the West Block, and that's hiring a construction manager. So that has allowed us to proceed with work packages concurrently. And that allows us to make sure that the construction manager and the designer are working very closely, hand in hand, early on in the project. And that has introduced flexibility in adapting to the realities of these buildings. Regarding the heritage aspect and the energy efficiencies, we work very closely with our internal heritage experts, Heritage Conservation Directorate. We also work with the Federal Heritage Building Review Office, and their representatives review every design decision that is being made and review the progress of the construction to make sure that we are not losing the designation, the heritage designation of the buildings in the parliamentary precinct. That does not preclude us from introducing efficiencies in the building, whether it be in water consumption, whether it's green roofs, more efficient windows, more efficient HVAC systems, for example. To the contrary, we aim at achieving the equivalent of elite silver certification for the buildings. I do maybe some examples on the unexpected surprises.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Chair, the West Block specifically was built in 3 different building campaigns, and that in itself required that some methodologies that we used in construction were different in all 3 of those campaigns. We did find a number of openings. Once we removed all the surface finishes from the walls, we did find a number of openings in the brick supporting walls in the building. Those were caused in the 1960s when the West Block was last renovated. That is, of course, being repaired as we speak. We are also including a number of other elements into the building, which will assist to, excuse me, coordinate with the heritage aspect of the building. One of the challenges, of course, as you mentioned, is that we need to integrate IT, security, and so on into a heritage building, and not to mention all of the seismic requirements for the structure. And these are some of the challenges that we are designing in. For example, we're putting in a structured cabling system for IT, security, and so on. And that will actually future-proof the building. It'll be flexible so that in future, if changes need to be made, it can be made quite simply. And as I mentioned, some of the new materials we're adding as well is we're using stainless steel anchors to solidify the walls because of the construction of the building, and you will see that on site today. There was a requirement for those stainless steel anchors to be inserted so that we improve the seismic stability of the building.
Well, thank you, Mr. DeMilo, and thank you, Mr. Workington. Your 5 minutes is up. And committee members, we've used our time well with concise questions and answers, and so we're right on time. In fact, we're a bit ahead of time. The clerk has arranged green buses to take us over from the west door of Centre Block to the construction trailer near the West Block site, where we'll be fitted out with the gear we need. With the 1 or 2 minutes we have left, though, I'd like to take Chair's prerogative and ask one question that's been on my mind for a long time. I, too, like Mr. Workington, come from a building construction background, a journeyman carpenter. I used to work for the company PCL that is doing the renovation. But it's long been my view that the reason everything on Parliament Hill costs 10 times as much and takes 10 times as long is there's too many cooks in the kitchen, in that unlike other parliamentary precincts like Washington or London, England, we've got the Speaker, the House of Commons administration, the Department of Public Works, the Department of Heritage, the National Capital Commission, all working at cross purposes, and I believe bogging down the whole operation. Would you agree, I mean, as the Parliamentary Precinct Branch ADM for this project, that we could be a lot more streamlined and arguably save a lot of money if we had one central office, like the chief architect of the capital region in Washington, D.C., and as has been recommended by a number of blue ribbon panels over the years, put it in charge of one office and get things done so they don't drag on for decades. I mean, we've built, just as a cost here, I just looked it up as a comparable cost. They built the whole McGill University Hospital, even with all the graft and corruption that went to Arthur Porter, for $1.3 billion. And it's a lot more expensive to build a hospital than it is to even renovate a historic building. 1,300-bed hospital, which consolidated 5 other hospitals into one. And that's done over a couple of years, not a couple of decades. Could you share your view briefly on would it have been a benefit to you if you were in charge of the chief architect of the parliamentary precinct to just get the job done?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for a very interesting question. As we mentioned before, the money that has been invested so far and will be invested until the end of the long-term vision and plan is a significant amount. It would probably cost us less today to build a new parliamentary precinct, but because of the symbolism and the importance of the seat of democracy, we have to be very careful that we are maintaining that historic value and that symbolic value. And these are unique buildings. The center block itself will be a very complex and unprecedented project. So these are the elements.
Could interrupt you though? Really, the only question I had really was, would you benefit from the single governance operation instead of these 5 or 6 actors getting involved and, I believe, throwing spanners into the works all the time?
I believe this was addressed with the creation of with the creation of the Parliamentary Precinct Branch within Public Works. So we have one, and I am personally accountable for the delivery on time and on budget of these projects. You are right to say that there are many stakeholders in these projects, not only the parliamentary partners. We mentioned FIBRO earlier, the National Capital Commission, and the RCMP, and I can go on. What we have done to address that is put in place a governance where we have all the players sitting at one table to be able to address the common issues at that one table. And I can tell you that since my tenure in the Parliamentary Precinct Branch, I have seen good efficiencies come out of that common governance.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We won't go any deeper into that. We'll just, will we adjourn the meeting or will we suspend the meeting? The meeting will be adjourned and we can reconvene at the west door of Centre Block for our little green bus. Thank you very much.